Yeah. So
I'd like to call this regular meeting of council of Monday, June 27th to order.
Before the meeting, we adopt the annual report. So we should, we can, the final annual report is there, so we can still, it's on, it's part of the agenda, so we can adopt it. Is that, it doesn't matter, yeah, we can see things.
All right, our first item is the annual report recommendation. The subject matter is the 2015 annual report, consideration of the report and submissions and questions from the public. The recommendation is that council receives the 2015 annual report, considers questions and submissions from the public. May I have a motion? Councillor Butler, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Butler.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. There's a lot included in this report, so I just had a couple questions about some of the items just to get some more information on them. The first one on page number 5 of the agenda, sorry, page 15 of the agenda. It says the city supports a regional tourism table that has completed a signage strategy for the boundary area, and this will lend to the city and region having consistency in sign messaging and appearance. I was just wondering through you to either the CAO or Councillor Hammett if they had more information on that.
Could I pass that to the corporate?
Direct and corporate officer.
No.
Ms. Winton.
Which one was it? Page 15? You're not on my page.
So this is was undertaken by TOTA, Thompson Okanagan Tourism Association, and they have undertaken a signage. What did Councillor Hammett? Sorry, they called it. I don't know if it was a study or, but they put together a report that we haven't seen yet on signage for the area that would be consistent throughout Boundary Country.
Thanks. My second question was on the next page, on page 16, and it was just regarding investigate overseas opportunities exchanged with our sister city. What overseas opportunities were we investigating, and who's our sister city again?
Your CEO.
So, Mr. Mayor, the provincial government was here, and they have 4 key markets for economic development, and that's India, Japan, South Korea, and China. Within those key markets, they were looking at opportunities that would exist over there for businesses that are for sale in our community, people that are looking to immigrate into our community. We've had many discussions on people from China, people from South Korea come into our community and sit down with our staff to talk about opportunities that do exist here. So that is the overseas marketing. And the sister city that we have, we were looking at that and we're looking at discussing that one with council in the future is we do have a sister city in Germany. Spreenis, yes. So we have that still existing. It hasn't gone anywhere, but it's an opportunity for us to talk to council about if there's any opportunities.
I think we have a sister city just across the line too, actually.
North Dakota, Stewart.
North Dakota?
No, sorry, I would have to look it up, but I remember there being discussions from years back, like Colville or just across the line. It was a sister city years ago. I don't know. I'll look it up.
So all in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. Now on the items of adopting the agenda, we're having 2 additions of late items to the agenda. The 2015 Statement of Financial Information and the Council Code of Conduct 308. I need a motion to amend the agenda to reconsider the Council Code of Conduct Policy 308. Councillor Thompson, Councillor Krog. Councillor Butler.
Yeah, wasn't this the one at our last meeting that we tabled until the July 18th meeting? I believe Councillor Ross put forward that motion.
Correct, and that is why I'm asking a motion to reconsider to bring it back to the table tonight. Councillor Tripp?
Just wondering if Councillor Ross would want to participate in any further discussions on that, and that she's not here tonight.
Unfortunately, with all due respect, I have no control over that. So unless there's any other discussions, all in favor of the motion to bring it back? Sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Councillor Butler. This will be your last second.
Yeah. I'm just wondering what the rationale is in bringing it back tonight, Mr. Mayor. This was something that was going to be researched by council, and we discussed it previously. I'm wondering why the rush again?
There's no rush. It has been brought forward to our legal team, so now all the T's have been crossed and the I's have been dotted. Now it's an official legal document. Young Anderson has looked over it, and I have the documentation to prove. So, again, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Councillor Butler. Motion is carried to bring it back to the table. And then as the second, I need a motion to amend the agenda to include under the late items the 2015 Statement of Financial Information, otherwise known as SOFI, and the Council Code of Conduct Policy number 308. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
As amended?
Yes. A seconder? Councillor Hammett. All in favor? So carried.
Opposed?
Councillor Butler is opposed. Now may I have a motion on the original to adopt the amended agenda as presented for the June 27th regular meeting agenda. Councillor Thompson?
Didn't we just do that?
We amended it. We did the amendment. Now we're doing the original motion. As amended.
Okay, I thought.
We did the motion on the amendments.
We're good?
We're good.
Yeah, we're good. Okay.
Okay,
Right
yeah.
on. Okay. Okay, moving along to the minutes. May I have a motion to adopt the June 13th, 2016 special meeting minutes as presented. May I have a mover, please? Councillor Hammett. Seconder. Councillor Crogg. Any discussion on the meeting minutes? All in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. Next, may I have a motion to adopt the June 13th, 2016 Committee of the Whole meeting minutes as presented? Councillor Crogg. A seconder, please. Councillor Hammett. Discussion, Councillor Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On page 96, it's talking about the ILMA members that came and did a presentation to council. And from my recollection, we just received that for information. But the way that the motion is worded here, especially with the part that says, and be it further resolved, it looks like we're endorsing the motion that they asked us for at that time. And I'm just concerned with the way that this is worded. Because I'm pretty sure Councillor Ross wouldn't have put forward a motion to make this, to pass this motion.
To our CEO, Mr. Allen.
Mr. Mayor, I think the Councillor Butler is correct in this, that Council voted to receive the report. Committee of the Whole actually voted to receive the report, and that was it. Because I remember at that point, I believe you said that rather than getting into any further dialogue, you're just voting to receive receive the report. I don't believe the council wanted to pursue it, but even if Committee of the Whole did support it, it would have to be done by resolution. So before we do that, Mr. Mayor, what I would recommend.
But all it is supporting the request.
Yes.
So it's not supporting the actual.
And be it further resolved that the Committee of the Whole fully supports the ILMA request for the provincial government to take action immediately.
To support the request.
Yes,
With
Mr.
verbiage.
Mr. Mayor, so why don't we, if we'd like to pull this piece out, we can bring it back to, we can put that aside and we can get the exact minutes on that.
Councillor Thompson.
Through you to our CEO, is it possible that this was the recommended resolution on the agenda?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So I just put forward an amendment then to the minutes here that we amend this to state that the Committee of the Whole just received the presentation from Interior Lumber Manufacturers Association for discussion purposes. And just leave it at that.
Mr. Mayor? Could I just ask council to before we...
Point of order, should we get a seconder before we discuss the amendment? We can't discuss an amendment to the seconder.
Councillor Thompson.
Only for discussion.
To our CEO.
Mr. Mayor, what I'd like to do is take the opportunity to review it and make a decision, not make a decision on it, but to ensure that it is accurate before we make the agenda. It would be somewhat reckless to go on with what we recall rather than just confirming that we have the information. So I prefer to review it and review the notes and then bring it back. And if council so chooses, we can pass these minutes along to the next meeting and I can bring them back then.
Councillor Thompson.
Then I would put forward a motion that these minutes be tabled to the next regular meeting of council in July.
I'll second it.
Seconded. So we have another motion on the table.
Tabling motion takes precedence, there's no discussion, we vote on that first.
Okay, so we vote on the first motion to amend it. So all in favor? All opposed?
We're voting on the tabling motion right now?
Yeah, the tabling motion.
Okay, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Councillor Crocker? No, that motion is carried. Going back to the original motion.
It's finished.
Finished, you did? Okay. Councillor Thompson.
Just a point of clarification through you to our CAO. So you're going to check the recording or the record on what the resolution was and bring the corrected minutes
Exactly.
for our consideration. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, that's exactly what we'll check it.
In that motion, did we table it to a certain particular time? The next meeting? Which
It doesn't matter for a tabling motion, it can be taken
Well, we
from the
can-
table at any time.
But it would be preferential to get it done the sooner the better.
I said July, I think.
Yeah, July 18th, okay. Thank you. All right. Councillor Tripp.
Yes, would there be some further discussion on these particular minutes? Because I had a request for a change as well.
Okay, so you want to amend the agenda, the minutes.
Yeah, it was on page 98, and it was about halfway down where it says, Councillor Tripp responded to Councillor Ross's comments regarding the agendas not being printed on time and spoke on suspicion. I just wondered if we could add 3 words in there, which would be the perception of suspicion, spoke on the perception of suspicion. I was addressing the perception of suspicion, not...
I'll second the motion to amend.
Mr. Mayor, what we can do again is we'll confirm what was said at that point, and then we'll bring it forward. This was you can see that these minutes are verbatim, and we will not be doing this anymore. Now, you will not see this type of verbatim again in your meeting minutes. You will only see the resolutions of council, and that's all you'll see in your meeting minutes, because our staff, this would be a 3-day exercise to go through this and do this stuff. So we will only see this. So I will have that piece confirmed, and I'll bring that back as part of the recommendation of council.
Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you for that advice to our CEO, because the purpose of minutes is only to record the resolutions.
But, Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to say that our staff member worked very hard on this, and we know that, but it was just an exercise, and because we've gone through a little bit of a shift, that there was, I commend our recorder for this type of detail. I was very much impressed.
So the question I have then, there was a motion made to amend the agenda in the wording, but now would it not best be served then to table this motion, this part of the agenda also, or the minutes, and then bring it back once the exact detail of the wording was received, like we did on the previous one?
You could bring it back in that respect too, Mr. Mayor, but I'm bringing back those minutes. So if we have a resolution to also consider this as part of the July 18th consideration, that would be suffice.
Only because the councillor is requesting that there's an amendment to the wording. Does staff and yourself wish to look at the minutes first.
Oh, absolutely. I'm going to be looking at the minutes to make sure that it's correct.
Okay.
I mean, whatever we say in there, that's what we'll have to make sure we draw that up.
Okay, so then would that satisfy you? Table it? Okay, so then I may I have a motion to table?
There is a motion.
No, there's a motion to amend it.
It gets confusing because you would have had to vote to bring this back to the table because you allowed her to discuss it, which means that you brought it back to the table, so it gets confusing. So we
Now we
didn't
have
have
to
that
vote it
official
down.
motion.
And we have to vote it now.
Excuse me.
Okay,
Councillor Crog?
just for clarification, the minutes for an item of the minutes was sent back for clarification. This is a separate request for a change to the minutes.
So the
which
wording,
is-
yeah.
Yeah, so, like, it's definitely separate, so
Yes.
it would require
Yes,
a separate.
exactly. That's my
tabling
point.
motion.
So we either vote on amending the minutes based on your request, or we
Or-
table them,
Have a table.
have it checked and tabled, so it's two separate motions.
Is there a motion to table? If not,
No, there is no motion
I
to
will
table.
make a motion to table these minutes to the July
18.
18th regular meeting.
And a seconder, okay, all in favor? So carried.
I would wonder why they take 9 hours.
Don't be exaggeratory, but it might just be 9. Under unfinished business, I believe we covered, no, we missed one. We have one more meeting, I believe? Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
May I have a motion to adopt the June 13, 2016 regular minutes as presented? Councillor Butler, Councillor Crog. All in favor? So carried. Now, to unfinished business. Manager of Development and Engineering Services, the subject matter is the memo update regarding the application for a development variance permit for a vacant property located on 7900 block of Riverside Drive. And the recommendation is that the property owner withdrew the application and does not want to continue with the process. Do we need any commentary on it? No? Okay. All in favor? Anyone opposed?
Point where nobody put forward a motion to receive, and if they did, I need to recuse myself because this, I had a conflict with this in the last meeting. So
Yeah,
someone-
the recommendation was, and there was no motion yet, you're right. So may I have a motion first?
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, wait, Sarah?
Sorry, Your Worship, we don't need a motion. We were just providing an update on this particular piece of information, and there's another memorandum following. So there's just sort of an update. They were referred to this meeting at the last regular meeting, and because the homeowner decided not to pursue the development variance permit, we needed to still let you know at this meeting.
Yeah, we still need a motion to receive that information.
You don't.
Okay.
Yep.
I think we should.
Yeah, there should be a motion to receive it.
Okay.
Yep, just a motion to receive the report.
Yeah, Councillor Crog, seconder, Councillor Thompson, or Councillor Hammond, whoever wants to second. All in favor? So carried. Councillor Butler has recused herself. Don't forget to fill out your form. The next item from the Manager of Development Engineering Services is the subject matter is the memo update regarding the amendment of the current Sustainable Community Plan bylaw by adding a policy statement for temporary use permits. And the recommendation is that the city at this time has not received approval from the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure and is referring adoption to the July 18th, 2016 regular meeting of council. May I have a motion to receive? Councillor Hammett, Councillor Tripp. Any discussion? All in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. We now move on to our reports. The subject matter is the written reports of council. May I have a motion to receive all the written reports of council to be received? Councillor Tripp and Councillor Hammett. All in favor? Discussion?
Yeah.
Normally we do written reports are for received, but you want to discuss on it?
There's a motion in my report.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So within my report, I have a motion that states, whereas a treasurer's report should be part of every regular board meeting, therefore be it resolved that council receive detailed financial reports from the CFO at every committee of the whole meeting that show not only department expenditures, but also the type of expenditure, which project the expenditure falls within, and the source of the funding.
I will need a seconder on that. Yeah. Councillor
There's a
Tripp.
motion to receive for information.
Yes, we have to have that one first.
Yeah, and I think that's on the table, is it
Yeah,
not?
yes. All in favor of
Oh,
first?
yes, I'd like to make a comment on the councilor's report.
To receive the reports and then.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what I said, you have to receive them. That's what I said. So all in favor of receiving the reports? So carried. Now we have a motion on the table by Councillor Butler and seconded by Councillor Tripp. Any discussion on that? To our CAO and then myself. And Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, it's referred to that the Rec Commission provides a report, and that would be 650 times less of what we would have to provide. Council and staff, we would have to generate potentially another staff member to generate this type of material. Mr. Mayor, this is we have expenditures of close to $1 million a month. If we were to start to report out on those things into the detail that the councillor is looking for, that would be the focus. We would just be having meetings based on that, and that would probably be approximately a week a month we would be spending on each of those line items, potentially more. To compare us to the Regional District Rec Commission is comparing apples to hand grenades. It's not even close. It is a situation that we provide we're going to be providing a report for us. We're keeping in mind right now that our expenditures just wrapped up with our audit at the end of the year. For us to be able to have our accounting up to date that we would even consider to discuss, we're looking at approximately 45 days behind with the billing, because not everybody's billing up to date. So it is not an accurate reflection. That's why when council gets the audited financial statements, they're very accurate. For a rec commission to do that, I mean, it's very simple. It's a very small business. It's drastically different, and I can't emphasize that enough. I mean, I would just want council to be very cautious on this. If you decide to consider this motion, it'll be a substantial change in direction for our organization.
If I may weigh in a second on this, I concur with our CAO has stated, because first and foremost, that's with all due respect, a very unreasonable request to ask of our CFO, especially seeing the situation right now with the organization. Secondly, again, the Rec Commission's requirements are so minimal compared to a whole organization, a corporation of our size. And the last item I might state is that even our organizations like the Chamber of Commerce, the museum, and the gallery are only required to report quarterly. So why our own corporation want to do it at every committee of the whole meeting? I recommend council against this request. Councillor Hammett.
I think
Councillor Thompson, you were first. My apologies. It won't happen. Maybe not.
Well, yeah. You kept hanging up on me last meeting. My concerns were, we must have well over 2,000 line items or more. And quite frankly, I don't think any of us need to take that kind of time to go through each line item and ask questions and take up staff's time, and on and on and on it goes. And so I think our administrator sort of answered the question. I mean, my question was, what would the time and associated costs be to provide this information monthly? And I think it would be very, very onerous. Not something I'm prepared to support.
Councillor Hammett and then Councillor Butler.
Yeah, I just think it's really redundant to even ask for these. We spend several months working on a budget. We have an annual budget, and to me, I really don't care whether they buy something in March that's supposed to be earmarked for April, or if they hold off until June. We've already approved it, and there's a purchasing bylaw in place that we've already passed as well, our policies. So, you know, I just think it's totally unnecessary and a lot of extra work.
Councillor Butler?
Yeah, so the rec department budget is over $1 million a year. I believe our city budget here is just over $8 million a year. It's the rec department still does deal with a lot of money and a lot of line items. It's quite detailed. With computer programs these days, you can spit out your spreadsheets quite easily, and they should be up to date. If this is a bit too onerous for staff, perhaps a recommendation on something that could be a bit simplified that maybe we could start off with. Because as with any regular board, you have a treasurer's report. The board for every organization sees an update monthly on the finances of that organization so that they can oversee the financial operations. And I think it's only prudent for council to be up to date. And then when it comes time to renew, like we have on tonight's agenda, the budget amendment that we're receiving, it's something that we're up to date on already, and it's not quite such a task to go through it.
Councillor Hammett, and this will be the last for both councillors.
Yeah, I'm going to contradict what you say about every organization gets them monthly. I know with the chamber, they prepare quarterly financial statements. So, like I say, we already have approved our budget. We've gone through line by line by line, and it's not just a one meeting thing. We've probably spent 5 or 6 meetings discussing the budget, so we know exactly where all the money's going, and if there's going to be a variance on that, it's brought back to council for approval. So I don't want to micromanage, and the financial statements that I receive, I'm quite satisfied with.
Councillor Tripp?
Yeah, we're looking at the amended plan for like later on in this agenda, and I'm just wondering, is that a normal procedure for each year? So would it be looking at things about 6 months in, or as you say, would a quarterly would a quarterly evaluation maybe be possible? Or I'm just asking, throwing it out here.
To our CEO and then to Councillor Thompson.
So, Mr. Mayor, what happened was we provided I get a monthly review from the department managers to see what percentage we are in the budget, and see where we are, and I meet with the managers on those pieces on behalf of council to ensure that they are on track. Throughout the duration of my tenure as CAO, we have not ever been over budget. Council's hired me to do that, and I reported back to council last time there was a request. I brought in the monthly statement that I'm going through. And I'm prepared to make that as a good suggestion to be able to talk to council about that. But when we look at the stack of paper we're going to be looking at, it's going to be approximately this high. It would be a good suggestion to maybe look at it quarterly from my managerial reports to the mayor and council. But I can give you the assurance that the funding is appropriate, because you spend over $30,000 a year on audited financial statements and an audit. One of the things that we're going to be seeing from council in the future here is the plan, and the business plan is internal controls and audits and the controls that we're going to be using. So I would just say to council, if you want to see these things, it's a very basic approach that we're talking about here, but it's going to be an over-the-top onerous approach. The other approach will be a little bit more systematic, because we can take a focus on some specific areas within the organization. But, you know, as the Auditor General does, we're trying to mirror what the Auditor General for local governments is doing, and that's what you're going to see from our organization. So I would suggest to you that the monthly report that I provide, along with potentially a little bit more detail in the quarter, but again, I can tell you that I'm almost a quarter behind by the time we get our information, because we don't get the audited financial statements for council until May for the year of 2015. So that's the time we've reconciled the budget. So we can have a discussion on the purchase of something, and the auditors could determine that is a tangible capital asset rather than an operational item. Then it has to be adjusted within the plan. So for us to have the discussion, we could spend hours talking about one item that would be a moot point, and it would be irrelevant to us even having this conversation. So I would prefer that you have the discussion with your auditors, because they're independent from everybody and they give you the clear presentation of the budget. But what we can do is we can provide a monthly report on the systems of where we are and the percentage of money spent within those budgets. And I think that was fulfilled the last time I did a presentation. I think it was last month. We had a statement of the and I think that's a reasonable request. I think anything beyond that would be a decision for council to talk to me, and then if they want more than that, what I'll have to look into is the cost of the organization and a plan to bring that forward. But it'll be a reshuffling, then we'll have to look at strategic plan and some other things too, because I don't want us to be compared to the rec commission or the pool, because we have multiple businesses within our organization. And again, I just want to stress the fact that it is the pool and their ice rink. It's not all the other aspects that we're looking at within here.
Councillor Thompson?
Thank you, Your Worship. I thought that the report that was included with the last agenda was fine. And I would and if it's not that onerous for our CFO, to have a statement like that quarterly. Having said that, for the period ending June, we're not going to have, and our CFO is not going to have enough information to be able to provide us with relatively accurate information for the July meeting, because invoices are still coming in and being processed. So if you want the June report, probably the earliest you're going to get it is August, to have any validity to it, that's an accurate, not validity is not the right word, but accuracy to the numbers. So I certainly am not prepared to ask our staff to go through that on a monthly basis. That's a little bit too much.
Councillor Krog, with all due respect, Councillor Butler, you have used up your two.
Mr. Mayor, I made the motion. I get to speak first and last to the motion under Robert's Rules of Order.
And you've spoken twice to it.
I haven't spoken last to the motion.
Councillor Krog, go ahead.
Okay. I don't think it's a bad idea. It would be nice to know, but I have concerns over the feasibility of it. So the structure that we run under now is a structure that most municipalities run under. If we want a little bit more information, then I could see that in the CAO's monthly or quarterly report. I like the idea, I just don't think it's feasible.
Councillor Butler, I'll give you the latitude to speak last on the motion, and then I'm calling the question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for obeying Robert's Rules of Order. Through you to the CAO, I'm just curious, I heard you state that you receive monthly updates from the managers that are coming into you. So I'm just wondering if those could be passed along to council. It wouldn't be onerous, it wouldn't be generating another report. It would just be sharing the information that comes in to the CAO that council could then look at.
Mr. Allen.
Mr. Mayor, in respect to the request, once we complete the budget, which we just did, we'll have an update. Once those ledgers are in, or the line items are put into the budget, you'll notice in the last report that was substantially incomplete. We were running that information based on last year's operating expenditures. The other thing I just want to caution council on is it's not very representative of expenditures when we go into snow removal, for instance, and our expenditures go through the roof. The percentage and the projections are through the roof, and it's going to scare the heck out of everybody without knowing what happens, because there's times when we move left and we move right. That information is there. Should there be the request for the reports that I get? Yes, absolutely. Starting in as part of the last point that Councillor Thompson suggested, that would be the one that we would. Well, why don't we start with that and see where that takes us? If council wants more detail, I just like to say to council, we spent 4 months going through an open budget process with the public, and you had one person attend this information. You had a great audit return on, or a great audit from your auditors come back to the organization. So I just say to you that, you know, absolutely we can provide the information that Councillor Thompson suggested, but before we start jumping into this, I would make the recommendation that we don't really have any issues, but anyway, we can consider it if council so chooses.
So I'm going to call the question. Councillor Butler's motion. All in favor? All opposed? Motion's defeated. Moving along now to the verbal report from Council Representative to Regional District of Kootenay Boundary.
Your Worship?
Councillor Tripp.
I'm sorry, I'm so new. I just was wondering, could we put forward maybe another motion that would encompass what Councillor Thompson had talked about maybe doing something quarterly or including the CAO's information.
I don't see the relevance of having a motion put forward this evening. I mean, that could be done at the next meeting
We could do
to our
it.
CAO.
Mr. Mayor, you and I had that discussion, and you suggested, based on our conversations, that we were going to try this for a little while and see what we got. So what we'll see in the next little while, I think once we have that, once you've tried it on a few times, then we can talk about some of the issues in there, and then we can talk about the relevance in relation to those expenditures. And should council want a little bit more detail there might be some relevance around that. Like, for instance, the water line is going to be put in. It's going to be just a little over $500,000. We can have a little bit more detail on that. But anyway, let's try that one out, Mr. Mayor. Like, we've already got it in place.
Exactly. So let's see how the fit is.
Sounds good, thank you.
Okay, now the recommendation is, well, I'll give the report first. That would be myself.
Did we receive the councillors' reports?
Yes, we did. Before I start my reports on the RDKB, I must put this out there because it's very imperative that I do. It's in regards to the Good Sam Club RV rally. I attended the opening ceremonies on Thursday and then also attended the banquet on Saturday. And all the members concurred unanimously that they love Grand Forks, the hospitality, and the warm welcome from city staff, the fire department, the public works. One example, they had a dust problem. They were there within the hour. They should be commended immensely. Too bad none of them are here at the meeting this evening. They stated it was one of the best places they'd stayed. The merchants were abundantly helpful to these visitors and tourists here. And everybody just basically said it was super. Their experience was super with Grand Forks, which is a message I really had to put out there because it should be noted. And we should be all proud to be citizens of Grand Forks, and our council should be proud that we represent this city, and our staff and our CAO also. And Sarah, our acting corporate officer, did an overwhelming job to coordinate everything. So, moving on, I'm going to give you a brief synopsis of all the meetings I attended. They're a little bit lengthy, so I'm going to shoot through them as fast as I can. On June 14th, the RDKB, there was the Water Suppliers Working Group, otherwise known as WSWG, held at Selkirk College here in Grand Forks. Discussions were on the drought management. The guest speakers were Phil Beliveau from Ecosystem Section Head and Ryan Whitehouse from the Aquatic Ecologist, both from Flynn Row Kamloops. Licensing under the new Water Sustainability Act was also discussed by Hamish Aubrey. If I pronounced his name wrong, my apologies. And he was from the Regional Water Authorization Officer from Flynn Row and Penticton. Councillor Ross was also in attendance at that meeting, and she will be taking my place. I delegated her to attend any future meetings, which she kindly accepted. On June the 15th, I was at a Committee of the Whole meeting in Trail. They call it the COW meeting. The main focus was on the RDKB Emergency Management Program. Special guests were Gundala Briggle and Dan Derby. What it basically presented was the roles of the elected officials in a case of emergencies, and emergencies ranged from floods, wildfires, just too numerous to mention. I have about 5 sheets on it, which if anybody wants it, it's welcome. It's part of the PowerPoint. There was also discussions on Roslyn's participation in the RDKB Regional Emergency Planning Service. That's still under discussion. On June the 16th, the RDKB in Grand Forks, the Electoral Area Services, otherwise known as the EAS, discussions were on various rezoning of different areas, and also Area D, the revised OCP bylaw, section it's bylaw 1555, and there was also discussions on the 2016 grant and aid report. June 22nd, I was at the hospital board, the WKBRHD, which is the West Kootenay Boundary Regional Hospital District in Castlegar. We had delegations from Interior Health Authority board members, and we had a special guest, Erwin Mulzer, the chair of IH, and Chris Mazurkowicz, who's the CEO and president of IH. Various discussions went on, some of which were in regards to the Boundary Hospital in Trail, And actually, there's some serious intent, it looks like, by IH, because they had a visit from Terry Lake, which actually toured the facility, which is really looking good that they are participating in some of the necessities that are happening. On June the 16th, no, that was June the 16th, and that was it. And that is all I have. I looked at double sheets. My apologies. All in favor to receive my report? All motion to receive my report. Councillor Crogg, Councillor Hammett. All in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. Councillor Hammett, would you like to add your hand up?
Yes.
Oh,
Thank you. This is a shout out to everybody that's watching the video that Les is producing, probably tomorrow. Please plan to attend the GFI this year. They really need the gate attendance. Love to see it happen again next year. And it brings a lot of revenue into this community. It's the biggest event we have of the year. And I'd hate to see it end because of lack of gate sales. So please, everybody, make an effort to at least catch a couple of games. Thanks.
thank you. That was an unpaid announcement.
Is it unpaid announcement?
All right. All right, moving along now to recommendations from staff for decisions. Subject matter is the electrical upgrade for James Donaldson Park. The recommendation is that council determines to approve the request for an electrical upgrade at James Donaldson Park, and further that council approves a budget amendment in the amount of $36,000 to come from electrical surplus. May I have a motion? Councillor Crogg, Councillor Thompson. Discussion, Councillor Crogg.
Yeah, I'm looking at it and I'm a little confused. It could cost up to $36,000. City's portion is $17,800. Estimated to be electrical expenses of $17,000, funded from surplus, and then they're going to donate $9,000 each year if it continues for 3 years, which gives you 27. Which kind of pays it off, but why does it say that the city's portion of the upgrade is $17,800 and we're asking for $36,000? It doesn't add up.
Additional electrical expenses.
Councillor Thompson.
That makes sense.
I interpreted that to mean that 17.6 would be for equipment purchases, and the balance would come out of the operating fund, the 17.6 for our wages and benefits and stuff. That was my interpretation. I would have to go through our CAO for confirmation on that, but that's how I read it.
To our acting corporate officer.
Thank you, Your Worship. So you're correct, Councillor Thompson. The additional so the first $17,800 city expense is for the electrical work that we could do, and then there's additional electrical work that would have to be done by a certified electrician. That would be the additional 17. But we would cover the whole thing up front, and then over the period of 3 years, the Canifest event would donate back to the city $9,000 each year.
Councillor Crogg. Apologies.
Thank you for that. It makes a little bit more sense. It just, I don't know if it was the wording. Is this upgrade beneficial and usable by other users of the facility, or just Canifest?
I believe that was discussed at the last meeting, was it not? That it was beneficial for many. Yeah. I know. You weren't. Sorry, apologies, but you weren't here. We just discussed that. So if I understand this correctly, the total cost at the end of it all, at the end of the day, is $9,000 to the city for an upgrade that would be beneficial for future use for many different events. Okay. Councillor Hammett.
Could have just said yes.
Yeah, but I've been sitting around you too long.
I think this is a great opportunity for us. It's a win-win situation. It's going to cost us $9,000 for $36,000 worth of electrical upgrades, which will allow us to bring in more events without the need of generators. And I just think it's a great opportunity that would be crazy if we didn't take it.
Councillor Tripp.
Yeah, I think so too. Our parks and our facilities really do benefit the community and also people coming in. I just wish, and I know we did talk about this at the last meeting, that there was some way that we could get a little bit maybe more firm commitment from the CanFest people for that $9,000 each year. I don't know. I know it sounded like it was it's just on maybe a goodwill kind of a basis. Was there some way that we could get a little bit better commitment from them, or?
I was going to weigh in on this one, but go ahead.
Mayor, what we'll do is should they continue to deliver or provide the concert in Grand Forks, it'll be a permit requirement. Should they do that, we'll ask them to agree to that up front. But again, that's based on, like Councillor Tripp pointed out, it's a goodwill piece, but we're going to make it a requirement because they won't be able to use the facility again unless they provide funding. Should they then want to come back to council and then ask to be waived, there's all kinds of politics that can happen in there. So just being prepared for that, yes, we're going to have a structure in place, but if somebody comes to seek that waiving of that, we'll ask council, and council may provide them the opportunity to say, no, we want you to hold to that. But understanding that how much money that really brings into the community, that one event, it's a massive ejection.
Exactly. I was going to make a brief comment, plus it saves the noise of the generators, but you won't hear them anyway.
Yeah.
So I believe we do have a motion on the table, or did we have a motion yet? All in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. We didn't have a motion. I was suspicious.
I thought that Councillor Crogg and I made the
Councillor
motion.
Crogg made the motion. Yeah, I thought Councillor Crogg and Councillor Hammond.
First did it.
Yeah.
That's a technical term.
First did it?
And I lasted it?
Okay, just
Now we ended it.
You lasted it.
I don't care. I'm in favor.
Okay, to our acting corporate officer again, the subject matter is the committee of the whole meetings to include Area D director, and the recommendation is that council determines to include the Area D director, Mr. Rolly Russell, in the committee of the whole meetings. Councillor Thompson, Councillor Hammond, is there any discussion? Councillor Thompson.
I think this is just an excellent idea. I know in discussions that I've had with Director Russell, he wants to be included and part of the discussions, and I think it's very important because many of the issues that we're facing impact Area D, and some issues that Area D is facing impact the city of Grand Forks. So if we can work collaboratively, I think that's just excellent.
Yes, if I may concur on that, absolutely, because we've been working towards this for a long time, and it shows a really good collaborative effort because we're such a closely linked two areas that it's almost a necessity. It's not a thought or a choice. And he's quite happy to do that too, which is wonderful. Moving along to, we have a motion, so all in favor of that motion? Anyone opposed? So carried. To our Manager of Development Engineering Services, the subject matter is the application for a development variance permit to reduce the rear side parcel line setback in order to build an in-ground pool on property located at 125 Victoria Way. And the recommendation is that Council considers the following and approves the development variance permit application by allowing a rear yard setback variance from 5 feet to 0 feet behind the existing residence at 125 Victoria Way, legally described as Lot 22, District Lot 493, SDYD Plan KAP 28728. May I have a motion on that? Councillor Hammett, Councillor Butler. Discussion, Councillor Hammett.
Was this just brought forward to receive for information at the last meeting? I thought we,
Committee of the whole is
oh, was that brought to the committee vote? But it didn't get brought back that evening for the regular meeting?
We let it rest.
The good roast.
Any other questions? All in favor? Opposed? So carried. Okay. From Engineering Services, subject matter Sustainable Community Plan Open House number 1. And the recommendation is the memo from the Manager of Development Engineering Services regarding Sustainable Community Open House number 1 to receive it for information. Councillor Hammett, Councillor Tripp. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? So carried. The Slow Pitch Tournament. Requesting permission for a special occasion liquor license on Friday, July the 15th from 5 to 10 p.m., Saturday, July 16th, and Sunday, July 17th from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. at Dick Bartlett Park for a slow pitch tournament. The recommendation is council approves the issuing of a special occasion liquor license to the slow pitch tournament on July 15th, 16th, and 17th, 2016 at Dick Bartlett Park, subject to obtaining third-party alcohol liability insurance, naming the City of Grand Forks as an additional insured on the policy. All slow pitch tournament liquor providers to hold a serving at right license certificate and ICBC drinking and driving warning posters to be displayed. May I have a mover on that, please? Councillor Thompson, seconder. Councillor Hammett. All in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. Subject matter, requesting permission for a special occasion liquor license on Saturday, August the 20th at the Gallery Gardens for a fundraiser called Taps, Tunes, and Tapas. Recommendation, council approves the issuing of a special occasion liquor license to Gallery 2 on August the 20th, 2016 at the Gallery Gardens, subject to Gallery 2 obtaining third-party, otherwise known as party alcohol liability insurance, naming the City of Grand Forks as the additional insured on that policy. All Gallery 2 liquor providers to hold a serving at right license certificate and ICBC drinking and driving warning posters to be displayed. May I have a mover, please? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Hammett. Our next item is, all in favor? So carried. Next item is letter regarding Poverty Reduction Coalition requests for resolution at the UBCM. The recommendation is the council receives a letter from the South Okanagan Boundary Labour Council regarding Poverty Reduction Coalition and requests for resolution to the UBCM for discussion and decision. May I have a mover, please? Councillor Tripp, seconder. Councillor Thompson. All in favor to receive it? Discussion, go ahead.
I think this is a very worthwhile resolution. I do believe it's gone out to all other municipalities in the province, from what I read on this. And I would hope that other municipalities will also support this and forward it on to the UBCM as well for consideration in September.
Councillor Hammett?
It says here that the timeline for the resolutions to UBCM is June the 30th, so I'm not sure that we're going to make it.
Councillor Thompson?
Well, I think if council were to adopt it tonight, it could be sent in by either email or fax to UBCM, so we it wouldn't be an issue meeting the timeline.
Yeah, the resolutions are there, right? Yeah.
Councillor Crog.
Yeah, the whereases of the resolution are a concern. If it's just a resolution that we might be looking at for the government to implement a provincial poverty reduction strategy, that's awesome. But I don't know if the whereases are even true. They're using statistics 1 in 10, 1 in 5, 78%. But I don't have access to that information, so I don't know if that's true. I believe we need a service, but if it didn't contain the, because that's a municipal one they want us to adopt. And then the UPCM one has is a more appropriate one without that unknown data in it. So that's one.
Councillor Thompson.
Well, I think the last whereas is an appropriate one, that whereas BC is the last province of Canada to have a commitment to a poverty reduction plan.
Is it true?
I would believe that, yes, it is true.
To our CEO, Mr. Allen.
Mr. Mayor, it seems, and I agree with Council, it's a great cause. They seem to have circumvented the local government management or local government association process, rather than being introduced as a resolution to council to be introduced at AKBLG, to see if then if the AKBLG would support it, move it on. They're asking our council to circumvent the process that you support.
Yeah.
So I guess I would recommend to council that I see a little bit of issue with them not following the proper process, because you're being asked to be put on the spot here. I think to receive it for information would probably be the best situation, and we could respond back to them and say, would you like to bring it back to our council for consideration as part of the 2017 AKBLG process? It sounds like it's a long-term venture. It's not a short-term solution, and I don't think that trying to push this through in a last second is going to make much of a difference. And we, council that attends UBCM could see the discussion on this on the floor, but then it may be a worthwhile cause that our council may want to bring on to AKBLG.
Councillor Tripp.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I know when I read it, I thought, even just trying to bring these things forward to the, the Union BC municipalities and urging the government to do these things just seemed a little bit out of place. That they would urge them to adopt this comprehensive policy sort of immediately. So I would agree that if there's a way that it can go through a more formalized process, it would seem to make more sense.
We have the motion floor. Yet to receive of this includes the second portion, which is a request for a resolution, so we would have to amend.
Do I need to withdraw the?
Just receive it, and then we don't have to act.
Yeah, I thought.
Okay, so we'll just emphasize on.
Withdraw,
Okay.
and I will concur with that withdrawal, so that it's not on the.
Right, oh, okay, I see.
Okay.
There's no recommendations on my agenda
No.
of whether it's for a motion to receive or a motion to adopt.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, we had a motion for council to receive, and I think Councillor Thompson brought up she wanted to have some discussion on it, on the resolutions that were in there, but you still just have a council, a resolution to receive.
Yeah.
Is that right, Sarah?
Yeah.
Just have a resolution to
Yeah.
receive.
Okay, so all in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. Our next subject matter is the letter and correspondence regarding federal government reviewing public postal service. And the recommendation is that council receives the letter and the correspondence from the Canadian Union of Postal Workers regarding the federal government reviewing public postal service for discussion and decision. Councillor Crog, Councillor Butler. All in favor? Anyone opposed? So,
Sorry, just curious, what's the decision? It says to receive for
Just to-
discussion.
Oh, if we wanted to make a decision on it.
just receiving the letter.
Same as the one above.
One above is the same thing, just
So
for
we're not
receipt.
making a motion.
No,
No.
just to receive it.
Decision to receive?
To receive.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that just,
Councillor Tripp?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, my comment on this would be the same. It would seem like that if you look through that material, that it would require staff a fair amount of work just to respond to what the Canadian Postal Service is asking for. And so I was a little bit concerned about that decision. Was it decision to direct staff to respond to what the Canadian Postal Service is asking?
No, it's just for receipt in regards to reviewing the Public Postal Service discussion and decision. It's their discussion and decision. We're just receiving your letter.
Because they are wanting a lot of information. They're asking for a lot of community input and information. I didn't know if staff would need to be directed to do that, or...
To our CEO.
If council was to jump into that letter and get into their business and then to offer up the request for us to undertake that, then Mr. Mayor, then we would undertake all that. But you're just receiving the letter. They've mailed the letter into us.
Yeah.
You've received it in the mail, and if you choose to not act on it, which is the most appropriate situation at this point, because again, it's pretty premature for us to get into these types of things without understanding a lot more detail.
So all in favor? Receive? Carried.
Did it again to make it even better. I see no problem.
Under the bylaws section, the subject matter is the extension to noise control bylaw number 1963 for CannaFest event. And the recommendation is the council determines to approve the request to extend the noise control bylaw number 1963 to 12:30 a.m. on August the 5th and 6th, 2016 for the CannaFest event. May I have a mover on that, please? Councillor Hammett, Councillor Thompson. Any discussion? Councillor Tripp.
Yeah, last year, we were in our home, which is about 9 blocks away, and as I understand, the speakers for the CannaFest were facing a different direction from where we were. And I remember being in one of our rooms, and I could actually hear the words to the songs. Now, that's okay if you like that music, but I guess I have a bit of a concern for all of the homes that live in the area that the speakers are facing. There's a hospital up there that's about 5 blocks away, and a lot of sick people in there. So I guess I'm just concerned about that. The other thing that I did was actually I got a bit of information here about the exposure guidelines for sound levels. And when you're at those decibels, which is 90, they said they would keep it under 90. You're really only looking at a maximum of 4 hours. So if they start their music, say at 7, then we are actually, people are going to be exposing themselves to potential hearing loss after 4 hours, which is 11. And I don't know, but I would assume that music last year, and I certainly can't be sure, but that it was awfully loud for us to be hearing it 9 blocks away inside our home with our windows closed. The other thing is that at 10, this is the level, 90 decibel level is actually a diesel truck at 10 meters away. So 10 meters is over 30 feet. That's your diesel truck going by. That's 90 decibels. When you consider that compared to how loud those speakers are going to be after 11 o'clock, I'm concerned about the hearing loss, because I know I've suffered from some of that from all the rock concerts I went to when I was young, but also the people who live in that neighborhood. So could there be a possibility of working with this and maybe asking them if, like, after 11 they could reduce the sound to something that maybe not be, maybe a little more reasonable? Anyway, those are just my comments.
To our acting corporate officer, and then Councillor Hammett.
Thank you, Your Worship. Last year, this noise extension to the noise control bylaw was extended, and the CanFest event was actually over at 11 o'clock p.m. So it finished right on time and didn't actually require the noise extension. But this is just sort of an in case. And the other thing is there was one phone call, one complaint that the city received with regard to the noise last year, which we thought was pretty good.
Councillor Hammond.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if Chuck Verbaev, the organizer, didn't he go door to door last year and introduce himself to the residents in that area surrounding and advise them of what was taking place? And I see this year they said that they're going to be playing until 12 midnight, not 11. But so we're extending them an hour and a half. But I'm assuming he's going to be doing the same thing again, communicating with the neighborhood this year and trying to keep peace.
If I could just weigh in on this, Councillor Butler, yes, you're next. On my own statement, I just live maybe a block and a half away, and although I'm not favorable of this kind of music, but with all due respect, I didn't find it that loud, I have to honestly say. And unless I already have a hearing problem, it could be the case, but I didn't find it offensive. What was I saying? So I don't find it that it was that loud. Councillor Butler.
Yeah, I was just wondering through you to staff, when we were talking about our noise bylaw last year, we received information about the mill and the different decibel levels. And I believe at that time, weren't the tests done to see what the decibel levels were over in Ruckle? And I'm just wondering if the city has a tester that we test decibel levels, and if it was there any testing done last year to see actually what the music was at?
No, there wasn't, but if I might just again add to that is, I think it would be very tough if we're encouraging and inviting people to come to our community to support our community financially, and then we're going to start setting levels of noise levels, loudness. It's a rock event, so we either don't accept a rock event or we live with it, and I don't think it's something that needs to be highly discussed with council. I don't think it's really a political issue, and I don't think we should make it one. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, so I think Chuck Verbaev is a very responsible individual, and I know that the hospital didn't know what to expect, and they were prepared for any eventuality, and there were none, absolutely none. And I also understand that the park was left in excellent condition, that they cleaned up after themselves, and I don't think there may have been a garbage bag that needed to be picked up. So, you know, this is an event, they bring in wonderful acts. Well, some people think they're wonderful acts. My age is showing, but and I would not want to discourage this. And I appreciate your concerns, Councillor Tripp, with respect to the decibel levels, but gosh, I probably live closer than anybody, and yes, I do. We'll measure. I know I was wanting to attend last year, but we weren't able. We had to leave town to look after our grandson. So, but this year I'm going to be here, and I'm going to. If I'm not there, I'll be sitting on my patio tapping my feet. So I'm supporting this.
There was a comment to that, by the way, that you left town. But for the citizens that predicted gloom and doom with this event, and I had some of them contact me, it's amazing that after the event was over, there was no real follow-up of serious complaints stating, I told you shouldn't have had it, or any comments like that. On the contrary, there was nothing. So, again, it's the hoopla ahead of the situation, but I think the event went off well. Everything was well maintained. There wasn't any major destruction, which again was predicted. This and that is going to cost the city. So none of the above. So I will have to say again, I welcome this event because it will send out a message that Grand Forks is receptive to events like CannaFest, Good Sam Club. I know you can't compare them, but nevertheless, GFI. So let's not push anything away and be careful what we wish for. Councillor Tripp.
Well, I like what came from the, if I can mention Ms. Winton's name, that she said that they shut down at 11. So that gives me a lot of kind of peace of mind, even though if the bylaw is there, if we extend it, if they're showing goodwill that way too, I think that helps me feel a little better about it. Thank you.
So all in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. To our Chief Financial Officer, the subject matter is the 2016-2020 Financial Plan Bylaw Amendment. The recommendation is that Council gives first three readings to the 2016-2020 Financial Plan Bylaw 2021 Amendment Number 1. May I have a mover on that, please? Councillor Thompson, the seconder, Councillor Hammett. Discussion, Councillor, where's the toss-up one? Councillor Hammett and Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, I'm just looking at item number 4, and that concerns me. Is there, because it's here, does it necessarily mean it's going to be done, or is it, I mean, where in line is this? Are we actually going to be doing this?
To our CEO, Mr. Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we have it in the budget. We've looked at we've got an estimate on the roof repair cost. But again, the 20-year financial plan, we can push those out for a year or two. We want to ask council to talk about striking a task force to talk to the folks at Whispers of Hope because their lease does expire. We want to have that discussion, but should council want to extend the lease for a few more years or not continue the lease for a few more years, it gives us the ability to have in the financial plan. But before we've made that expenditure, we will come back to council to have that discussion. Because we're going to be asking council to consider having a similar to the Transitional Housing Committee, that type of discussion with the folks from the Whispers of Hope to understand what the long-term projections are and what that's going to look like. Because we don't want to make investment into that facility if we're not going to be in there for a long period of time. So I give council the reassurance that it will not be undertaken until there's been further discussion with council.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. When does their lease expire? Is it
20, I don't have the exact date.
because it's soon, I think.
It's within 2 years.
Within 2 years.
Yes.
So yeah, okay.
Councillor Tripp and then Councillor Butler.
I was just curious, through you, Mr. Mayor. We're asking for a $1.1 million addition to our budget here for this year, which is quite an extensive amount. It says that it's to be funded from reserves, surplus, grants, donations, DCCs. I was looking in the reserve accounts to try and find out what the balances are right now and what they will be after this budget amendment, and I wasn't able, I looked back through all our budget stuff from this year, and I wasn't able to find any total for those accounts, especially for the wastewater and for the electrical. So if the CFO has that information, that could be helpful.
Your Worship, the balances at year-end 2015 are in the financial statements, and there was about $2.9 million in reserves. And the financial plan has the transfers to and from reserves. Plus, we also had the $1 million surplus from the 2015 statements that could be allocated at the end of this year if needed, but it won't be needed. We do have the money in the reserves.
Thank you, Ms. Shepherd, for the update. Councillor Tripp.
Yeah, I just really was having some issues with this, trying to figure out where the money was coming from and going to. It would be so nice if there was maybe something like a flow chart that showed the reserve balances and then where the money is actually coming in to the capital and different things here, so that we could see where the reserve was at the, say, the end of 2015, and then what you're planning for 2016. And I know I wasn't here to approve this, so I apologize for coming in a little late in the game. But one question I had, actually a couple questions, if you'll indulge me here. Under debt on the Schedule C, it says under debt that there's a balance there of $4,252,914, and all of those figures along there with electrical waste, slag equipment, whatever, all of that seem to add up to that amount. The total capital there of 7.722. Are you following me there with that? And then on the 2015 financial statements, there was an amount for the long-term debt. There was a total there of 1.969. So I was just wondering, are we adding 4.252 to the 1.969? That's under long-term debt. Just trying to get a handle on those figures. Have I totally messed you up? Sorry.
Your Worship, the first page of the financial plan is the total for all the funds, and it does show, so that would be page 183, and it does show debt proceeds 4.252, and that should be matching the debt column. And those two numbers are for the multi-utility borrowing, and we don't have any multi-utility projects scheduled for this year. It's just a continuation of the started multi-utility projects, so we have not borrowed that money, and I don't believe at this point there's any intention to borrow that money.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, to that point, we undertook some increases this year in taxation under the premise that we weren't going to be borrowing. We were not moving into going into our line of credit. What we're talking about is all of these projects you see will be outlined here in the 2016 plan, and this is the 20-year plan that balances your revenues with expenditures. The idea behind this was to not count on grants and do everything based on the revenues that we have, based on the amounts that we're putting into reserves annually. This plan that the CFO and our team put together is a 20-year outlook for our community that really balances the in and the out of revenues, with looking at the opportunity to pay off debt throughout the course of the debt that we have, but allows us to undertake these projects annually. So in 2017 you see the projects, but it still affords council the ability to move those projects around should we need to change the priority sequences, because you can see that here's the year that they're going to happen, here's the projects, and here's the condition and the priority level, and then what happens is this goes through 20 years. So it's a massive project here, and it talks to you about the funding source here. So it's allocated, comes from capital reserves, operating, or it's allocated. You notice in here that it's from development cost charges or capital, but we don't have any grants. Should we receive a grant, that puts us in a more favorable position, so that will put this money back into council's reserves, and you may be able to accelerate a project or push a project off. So the idea behind this is for council to have the control, but to be able to tell the community what to expect. What we're seeing here, this is what you can expect. In 2036, well number 6 should be replaced. What we're trying to tell you is a little bit of an outlook of what we're projecting based on our condition assessments. We can tell you here that the substation for the engineering, that is going to be, the electrical substation is being considered in 2016, and this is that study that we asked you to consider because of the Fortis integration. So these pieces are in here, and I would just say to council that this balancing of the revenues and expenditures based on the taxation is a solid plan for the city. So I'm not sure if that helps, Councillor Tripp, in respect to the information that we have. But the idea behind this is to be able to project and show the community annually what we've got planned out here, because there's so much of it.
Councillor Butler and Councillor Tripp.
Yeah, I've got a couple more questions. Am I understanding it right that we're taking 500,000 out of both reserve funds, the sewer and the electoral, and putting that into the capital reserve fund? Is that how it's being moved?
Your worship, yes, that's correct. That was in the original financial plan discussion, to take $1 million from the SLEG and 500 from each surplus.
Okay, so just to follow up on that, so when I added up the reserves, at the end of 2014, we were sitting at about 3.5 million, and then at the end of 2016, it looks like we're going to be sitting, 2014 was 3.5 million, end of 2015 was 2.9 million, and then now we're asking to take another 1.1 million out, so I'm just wondering, are we going to still meet our objective that was given to us of the year-end balance this year being back at 3.5 million? That was given to us on a sheet at the beginning of our budgeting process this year. It just seems like our reserves are actually going down rather than going up.
Your worship, that's so the 2.9 million, so about $3 million. There'll be an additional million into 500,000, so 2 million more going in. In the financial plan, we had $1 million being transferred from the site reserve, $500 from capital or from the two surpluses, so 2 more million going in. So that'll bring it up to 5 million. And then we also have transfers of $240,000 going in from the general fund, $120,000 from the electrical fund, $35,000 from sewer waste, wastewater.
Yeah, so that's the total.
So it's getting to about 5.5 million. So we won't, was the original plan. Now that we have the 20-year capital plan into account, we know exactly what our revenues are going to be, and so we've kind of balanced it. So no, we won't be at that 3.5 million at the end of the year, but we'll be pretty close, I believe. A continuity of reserves is part of my financial plan. I just haven't included it in the bylaw, but it can easily be attached to the end of the report for the adoption.
Councilor Tripp?
Yes, that might be a really good idea to have that. I think what the missing piece for me is that when you see the money coming out of reserves and you don't necessarily see much of a surplus, you don't know what those reserves were and you know how much then you've got left, because obviously we're not starting at zero. You know, there's obviously much more money there, but it is pulling down from it. So if we know what we're pulling down from and what we've got, and then how is that going to impact the 20 years? Because obviously if you didn't include that extra $1.2 million, it's about $1.2 million that we're asking for approval here, right? So that's going to be pulling down the over the 20 years. You've got $1.2 million to make up somewhere in there.
Your worship, we did also have $1 million surplus this year, total almost $1 million. We had 500,000 in the general fund, and through all the funds was almost $1 million. So that each year when we get updated info too, we'll have to adjust the plan. And now that we have the 20-year capital plan, we have looked at our revenues over the 20 years and seen what we're going to be putting in from each of the funds to make sure that we have the right reserve levels to be able to fund the 20-year plan. So that was part of putting that 20-year plan together. But we can definitely do a reserve continuity.
That would be great. Sometime.
Thank you.
That would really help.
Any other questions? Councilor Bud?
Yeah, I'm just curious, there's a few things that aren't included here, Mr. Mayor, so through you to staff. The grant applications that we did, I think there was 2 or 3 of them this year, and our portion of that hasn't been included in this budget amendment. So I'm wondering if we're waiting until we get those grants and then another budget amendment will be brought forward for those items? Yeah.
Is someone going to call the question? All in favor? Anyone opposed? Councilor Bud, are you opposed?
Yeah.
Motion is carried. Okay, now we're gonna move on to our late items. We'll deal with the first one, which is a recommendation that council receive the chief financial officer's report and further approve the statement of financial information, otherwise known as SOFI, for the city of Grand Forks as at December 31st, 2015. May I have a mover on that, please? Councillor Thompson. A seconder, Councillor Hammett. Discussion, Councillor Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the CFO. I just noticed under our payments to RecTech Industries that there's $323,000 there. I know that the city wasn't actually responsible for all of that. I don't believe it. I'm just wondering if some of that money came in from the Rotary and then the city paid it out, and just wanting to be sure that the city's portion on that, was it 200,000 or 250? I can't remember the number. Do you know that offhand?
The city's portion, I believe, was 100,000 and the Rotary did the balance of it, or I believe, I'd have to check on that to be sure. It was 200,000 and 100,000. We did come in under budget on the city's portion, and all funds for the project did flow through the city, so that we were able to issue tax receipts for donations, and we have all the assets in our system too, and we were able to kind of have a little bit of control there too.
Thanks.
So I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. I thought we already did that. No, we didn't. Okay. Moving on to our other late item. The recommendation is that the motion for council to refer the council code of conduct policy 308 to the July 18, 2016 regular meeting adopted at the June 13, 2000 regular meeting be amended to be referred to the June 27, 2016 regular meeting for consideration. May I have a mover on that, please? Councillor Hammett, a seconder. Councillor Thompson. Discussion. Before we have discussion, may I just have the indulgence of council and the gallery for I can pass out copies of it? Before we begin our discussions, let me just point out, as I had mentioned earlier, that this policy has been looked at by our legal team, Carolyn McEachran from Young Anderson, and her statement is as follows. Council has the ability to enact policies regarding their conduct. This policy has been checked by our legal team. And that's why you see those changes. The red ones are just basic clerical or word changes which represent nothing as far as the actual code is concerned. And I had discussed with Carolyn this afternoon, and she had assured me that the policy in itself is quite solid and rigid, and many municipalities do in fact have this policy.
Mr. Mayor?
Councillor Butler.
Could we please call a 15-minute recess to allow council to read through the policy that they're about to approve? It seems highly strange that we would be given a policy to pass without even having an opportunity to read it.
I believe the policy was already passed out, but yes, I can...
We just got it right now.
No, the original policy, which is the same except for the clerical changes.
Well, it's got quite a few clerical changes.
Yeah, I will allow recess, absolutely. There's no reason why not. Councillor Crog?
Does it have to be 15?
Not 15 minutes, I would recommend, I think 10 minutes would be
I
fine.
was thinking 5.
Okay, what's councillor recommendation, 5? Everybody agreed? Okay, so we'll call for a 5-minute recess.
We did it in 2009.
Call this meeting back to order.
Our TV rep.
Right, but that wouldn't show up. Yeah. So,
Okay, so now we're open for discussion. Who would like to start first? Councillor Butler?
Well, for the most part, this policy states what's stated in a couple other of our policies, which is pretty straightforward. There's a couple things, though, that I do have concerns with. One being that city staff members are now being restricted from talking to council members at all regarding business of the city. And on the second page, under role of members, members shall respect and adhere to the council CAO structure of municipal government as per city protocol practiced by the city. Members shall not contact city staff directly to discuss official municipal business except to the CAO through the mayor. So members shall refrain. So this doesn't state that staff members then can't contact council, because that's their legal right under a democracy, that, you know, being tax-paying members of the city, even though they work for the city, they're still allowed to contact their representatives on council to discuss things that they have issues with. Otherwise, they have no representation in a democracy. That removes their ability to talk with council about city issues, like any other resident of the community can phone us up and say, hey, what about this? How come you guys did that? Now staff doesn't have any representation on council. So that would be one of my concerns here. The second one being the resolution of this, if there's complaints brought against an individual of council, that complaint is then taken into an in-camera meeting, and council itself decides whether that person is in violation of the policy or not. Well, council's not, we're not unbiased here. We have political issues we want to put through. We might, you know, partner up with somebody to vote a certain way, and we might not like the way that person's going to vote on an issue, and so for political reasons we might want to remove that person from being able to vote on a certain issue, especially in important in-camera meetings where important decisions are made. It can be used as a political tool, and I would really like to see an unbiased third party be able to make this decision, because council, as we've seen in our performance over the last year and a half, I mean, with the court case that came about, there's tensions amongst us, and there's biases, and council cannot impartially decide, you know, if they like me or not, or if they like Councillor Tripp, or, you know, what our personal beliefs towards one another are. We're not unbiased to be able to judge each other in an in-camera meeting and say, I don't like the way that you've behaved, and therefore I'm going to remove you. It's just not a fair way of dealing with this. The third thing that I have here is that this policy has to be signed. And to sign away my freedom of speech to the media, I'm not prepared to do. I don't think it's fair to ask me to remove my charter rights and to sign this agreement that I cannot come to you at any time and speak openly with you. I'm not prepared to sign away those rights right now.
Mr. Allen, but before, I'd just like to weigh in on your second point. There's no mention in this policy whatsoever of any punitive measures of removing the councillor from their position. I would like to see and beg to differ where you found that. You made a statement that if council are biased, it would not be fair to remove a councillor. There's no mention of that whatsoever. There's not even close to any stringent punitive measures at all indicated as such. If you are reading in between the lines, Councillor Bowdler, that's your prerogative, but I do not see that anywhere in the policy. And second of all, on the last question regarding talking and signing away your rights, it is only in regards to subject matters which pertain to the corporation, where the corporation could be possibly put in jeopardy. To our CEO, and then to Councillor Hamilton.
Mr. Mayor, in respect to the first question in regards to staff, one councillor only has a vote. They sit at the council table and they make decisions on policies and bylaws. For councillors to be interacting with city staff and asking them for special things or checking into looking into certain situations, it's inappropriate unless all of council has that privilege. You have one employee to look into those for you. Should you have a request, then you can ask your council peers to be able to look into that. And should they second your motion to be able to do that, then you could get a report back to you on that. But if a councillor wants to do their own reconnaissance and get into a meeting with let's just say a fellow that operates the garbage truck and wants to talk about that business, that's highly inappropriate action. But if, for instance, if an employee of the organization goes to a member of their council and says, geez, you know, I know you're voting on a rezoning piece, and I'm really not in support of that. And I'm going to tell you why. That's not inappropriate conduct. But talking about the business of the city where they work is highly inappropriate because, again, a councillor only represents one vote. They do not represent the voice of all of their councillors. Your collective voices represent the voice of your council. And that is the most important thing to remember here, that you as counselors do not want to get into that discussion with one of the employees, because you'll start to pull them and force them into different directions. And the other thing is, the employees can become a little bit confused, Mr. Mayor, in respect to that. And we don't want to get the employee confused and put them in jeopardy, because they may act or say something inappropriate that might get themselves into a difficult situation that could take several hours of administrative time. So I think when we understand the dynamics around that, it's just important that council understand the dynamic of what's intended there under the one employee policy. I'm not going to speak to the other pieces there. I think you've addressed that. But I think the one thing I'd just like to add, that in respect to what you said, is due process is always afforded to everybody. And that's one thing that is very clear, and I've seen this on several occasions. You are subject to due process. Council doesn't act as a quasi court. What they would do is, if they found a situation that they felt to be uncomfortable with, they could ask for a mediator, or they could ask for somebody to come in to find a resolve to the situation. But it's just important that council understands that the mayor has pointed out there is no repercussions in the document. It's a decision of council. Council makes that decision to say, if somebody has fallen off or caused a big problem, then it's up to council to decide who they're going to bring in to address that.
And also, if I may add, it also states under role of members, if the member's request for information from city staff shall be directed through the CEO to the mayor. And in fact, it states, if the response constitutes more than technical clarification, then the response shall be provided to all members of council so they are aware of the situation. That's the main criteria here, that everybody is made aware, so there's no individuality occurring. That is the only thing, because everybody, we are council, we are not individuals alone, we act as a whole, as a unit, as a body. Whether we agree on our decisions, at the end of the day, we come to a resolution. We may not agree with the resolution, but we have to come to it as a body, as a whole. Councillor Thompson. Oh, I'm sorry. And then Councillor Hammond.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple of things. Speaking with employees on city business, I had one of the electrical crew come to my door some time ago to ask me about the removal of a street light across the street, and I had no problem with it. So, you know, he probably knew I was a councillor. I knew he was a city employee, and we were talking city business, but not as a councillor to an electrician. And then they were working, and it was very hot that day, and I was gone somewhere, and my sweet husband went over with bottled water to the man, and he said, I know you're not supposed to do this, but it's awfully hot, would you like some water? So, you know, those kinds of things do happen. There is one change that we talked about last committee of the whole meeting, and that was you have deputy mayor.
That should have been changed.
And that should have been just changed to the mayor?
To the mayor.
Yeah.
That can be, that's housekeeping.
Yeah, and so other than that, I have no issues with the policy.
And Councillor Hammond and Councillor Trevor, before we continue, there's one other issue which Councillor Butler brought to my attention, as far as being biased and having it in camera. No decision will be rendered in camera. The only statement that is made here as far as punitive, if you can even call it punitive, it says that the councillor may be in contravention, and the code would encourage that member to stop their behavior or activity. There is no mention at that point yet. It would only be considered on a more severe measure if that was not heeded, because it's more of a briefing, a collaborative effort amongst councillors to say, whatever the issue is, let's stop this and let's move on. That's all. There's nothing more. It would have stated harsher, would have said, well, if a councillor contravenes, there would be censorship or sanction. That is not mentioned immediately. This is only based on, guess what? You contravened the policy. Can we please stop this? That's it. Councillor Hammond.
I don't see where it says that the council will be making a decision of whether or not another council is in violation of this code. I think it's pretty straightforward. If there's a violation of the code, it's up to council to decide whether they want to impose any sanctions or not, or repercussions, and I guess that would depend on the severity and the extent of damage or the persistence. I don't see a problem with freedom of speech with the media. I get questioned quite often and do interviews quite often with both radio and our local newspaper on topics that council has discussed and we are in agreement with, or on my opinion. But under no circumstances would I go to any of the media to air complaints I have about the business of the corporation without first verifying with our CAO and mayor. And this is what's going to prevent, it's going to protect our staff from that kind of situation where there's insinuations being made to the media that there's wrongdoing going on when in fact questions haven't been posed to the people that could answer them in the first place. This copy here, this code of conduct, as I see it, is set out to protect our staff from abuse, verbal abuse, and I don't see a problem with it. I really don't. It doesn't tie my hands one way or another, and I just don't see a problem.
Just to add quickly to that, it would also protect not only our staff, but the corporation from potential litigation that could occur with the wrong issues being brought to the public's attention. And that is a more imperative subject. Yes, exactly. And the communication policies that we already have in place also interacts with this. We pretty much know our roles of who the spokesperson is for the city. So I don't think this supersedes even our communications policy. Councillor Tripp.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with the policy, the purpose of it, what's being asked of the councillor. I think that these are just things that people should do if their character is good and if their conduct towards others is respectful. Again, it's, well, one thing, I do feel very bad that Councillor Ross is not here. She was the one that asked that this be moved forward to the July 17th meeting, and she may have some real strong, I mean, there were obviously very strong feelings and impressions and things that were said the last time this was discussed. And the thing is, we're all asking, I mean, it even says that this is going, it's more effective if everybody is in compliance and in agreement with it. Because it is very much a self-enforcing, sort of a self-policing kind of thing. She's not here. I don't know. I mean, if I had asked for something to be moved forward because I wanted to be thinking about it and maybe doing some more research and stuff, I'd come back and I'd be pretty annoyed. I'd say, well, look, why did you guys do this in my absence? You know, we moved it, I wanted it moved to July 17th, and then you went ahead and did this without me being there. So I'm just concerned about how she'd feel about that, first off, just so we know that. And then the second thing is the issue of the compliance and enforcement. You know, I still feel, and I know that the CAO has explained that there will be policies or procedures set up around how that compliance and enforcement might roll out. But I still feel that the member who has been reported doesn't somehow get a chance. And the way it reads, it says that the report comes forward in writing to the council. Is the member involved in that? Then it goes on to say at such time advisement may be given to the member. So to me it sounds like the member's not really involved in that whole process. Well, you know, there's three sides to things. There's your side, there's my side, and then there's God's side, you know, and I just really wonder how can that be unbiased? And what kind of a pickle might we be getting ourselves into if somebody brings something forward and then the person doesn't get a chance to say what their side was before this advisement is even given. And I maybe I see you guys wanting to say things, so I'm hoping there's some good response coming back to that question that I have.
If I just may, on the advisement side, the advisement side of it, if you read it very carefully, it's not a punitive measure. I would say it would become, as I'd mentioned at the last meeting, it's more of a dialogue, more of a discussion, like a briefing.
Okay.
It's only if there is a persistent continuance of such a situation after, like I mentioned at the last meeting, I think myself, I don't know what the rest of council would ask the individual, but myself, the first question I would ask, assuming with all respect, yourself are the one, I would say, Councillor Tripp, did you really feel it was necessary to do that? And then you would have your chance and an explanation. It wouldn't be, Councillor Tripp, you violated the policy, that's it, you're done, or whatever. That's not the role or the object. This is a guidance, it's a foundation of conduct and behavior so that we can present ourselves at a meeting in front of the public in a respectful manner, which we were elected for. When we have comments, which is more so evident now for this policy, when we have comments from the media and from other individuals that they were basically ashamed to see us in action, that sends a message, and I think that should send a message to you, Councillor Tripp, that definitely a guideline is necessary. And this is only a guideline. And again, anyone who does not feel that they are any way going to contravene any law, they have no fear of the law, and they never will. Of any law that's in the law of the land, none. It's only if you are fearful that you will contravene it more than one time, that you will be repetitively contravening it. And that's about the only clarification I can give, because as I read this policy, this was not set out to basically penalize someone. That's not the intention. Because no penalty would ever be required once Councillor takes a look back and says, because every member is aware of this policy, and you made a good statement, it is more or less self-enforcing. That is about the best way that you could have made that statement, which it is. If you're aware of the policy, then you will enforce it upon yourself. You don't need to be told by anyone that you're doing wrong. And should there be a reason that you do contravene it at one time or another, then it's not immediately punitive and punishment. You will be advised, and then it's a learning process. It becomes a learning curve. Go ahead, and then I have other councillors.
Yes, thank you. I hear what you're saying. I tend to be a person that works really well if you give me an example. So could you give me an example? Like, okay, say one of us at a conference, I don't know, whatever. Can we come up with a scenario? Does something that, you know, that somebody feels is wrong and it needs to be reported. Well, how will that roll itself out?
I might let Councillor Hammett weigh in on that one.
One example would be if you were to talk to the media to say you saw the financial statements, you saw the annual report, and you weren't happy with it. You thought there was something being fiddled on the books. Rather than going to the mayor and the CAO, you went to the media. And then you find out after the fact that it was perfectly explainable and there was a logical explanation for it. What you've done is you've created undue stress for council, for the staff, and the communities in a turmoil now because they think that there's something going on that there isn't. So it's just a matter of following proper protocol and going through the channels before making assumptions and damaging the reputation of our staff.
And that's a very good example, and if I can weigh in on that one, my response to that would be very simple. I would question the councillor and say, was that really necessary? Would there have been another way of doing that? That's it.
That's good. That helps me understand.
If you understand, and that is with sincerity how this policy will be applied. Because we're not here to start, as Councillor Butler stated, to start removing people. That's not the objective of this. None whatsoever. It's a guideline. Like many other policies we have in place, a lot of them we're not totally aware of every policy in place, but they are in place. And I guess if we were to act on every policy, I guess one or many of us would have been in contravention of other policies that are in place too if we really read every one. So once council gets let's say up to speed on this, I think it'll probably be forgotten because there'll be no actions of contravention. There shouldn't be. Councillor Thompson and then Councillor Krog first, and then Councillor Thompson, and then Councillor Hammond.
I was going to say something profound, but I would rather just. I was thinking about this and I thought, no, I better not say that.
Well, it's not,
even though it's not in force yet, I think I should keep that thought to myself. But seeing as I'm keeping out, I thought we should call the question, yes. But there are other speakers, so.
Well, I will now curtail it because everybody has spoken more than twice on this matter, so not everybody, but Councillor Butler, you fired off 3 questions, I believe, but go ahead, I'll give you latitude one more time.
Okay, well, I thought it was going to be
Councillor Hammond, sorry, you have to.
Order. To call the question, you need a 2/3 vote of council to call the question.
No, I just said there are other speakers.
Yeah, so
I was going.
Councillor Hammond.
Yes, to answer Councillor Tripp's questions, I'm just reading back through the minutes of the last committee of the whole, and you were concerned about Councillor Ross, and this might help you a little bit. Councillor, this is what it states in the minutes. Councillor Ross feels that this should be a natural part of elected officials' demeanor and behavior. Intentional comments of embarrassing staff should be forbidden. So she struggles with this policy because it has become necessary. So that was her concern, and that's why she just wanted to give it some more time and bring it back. She was just concerned about why it came to the floor in the morning and was going to be brought back in the evening, which it in fact wasn't. It was postponed till now.
Councillor Thompson. And then Councillor Butler.
Thank you. Just a couple of things. Councillor Tripp, you were concerned that the council member that may be being reported on for the report shall be reported to council, and the individual that could be the subject of this report is a part of council and would be there, and then would have the opportunity to speak to the issue and make an explanation of what was going on. And the other thing is that I think it's really important that every member of council, should this policy be adopted, sign it, that they have read it, that they have understood it. Don't have to agree with it, but you've read it, you know what it says, and hopefully the councillors will all comply with the intent of the policy.
Here, I agree with that, Councillor Thompson, because that will show a collaborative effort that we are, again, as I stated earlier, a unified body as a whole by everyone signing it.
There's nothing to be afraid of.
Councillor Butler.
So in here it states that members shall respect and adhere to the council CAO structure of municipal government as per city protocol practice in the city. I haven't found anything about this in the charter so far. There's nothing in the provincial legislation that states that you can only speak to your CAO through your mayor, which will become extremely cumbersome for you, Mr. Mayor. Every time a councillor wants to speak to the CAO, they have to go through you in order to talk to the CAO, and then he has to bring the message back through you to that councillor. You got a game of telephone going on there too. Messages get scrambled. So I don't see why this needs to be included. When you have complaints brought forward in camera, it's going to be time consuming. I mean, look how much time we spend already just talking about this. We're going to have things like this coming up at every in-camera meeting. It's going to be cumbersome and time consuming. It's going to add a lot more stress. I don't think it's going to reduce stress. I think it's going to add to it. Also, it's been brought up a couple times as I've been listening to everyone's comments that there's nothing punitive in here. You can't be removed from a meeting because of this policy. And I asked this at the last meeting. I never got an answer to the question. It says city council may impose sanctions on a member. What does sanctions mean? Whose conduct does not comply with this code, including but not limited to a motion of censure. What does censure mean? Define those two terms for me and tell me that that does not mean that I'm going to be removed from a meeting. And you've also said that the decision won't be made in camera. So I can't see this being debated in an open public meeting, so I don't see how it's not going to be made in camera.
To our CEO, and then to Councillor Krog, and then to myself.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, for those that aren't familiar with due process is everybody's afforded the right amount of time, the right amount of representation. Should there be a situation, should these things come up, council will have to adhere to the rules and laws of the land that are indicated in that policy. Council does not get to act ultra vires, which is beyond your powers and beyond your scope. So you cannot do those things. But what you do have the ability is to explore those options should you need to. So if council decided to explore a situation, they would have that ability, but within the laws of the country of Canada. So they are not beyond that, and they are not diminished less than that unless council decides that.
Councillor Krog.
Just in reference to Councillor Butler's first comment, which there are no page numbers, so I think it's the second page in where it says shall only be made to the CAO through the mayor. When I read the first part, it says comments about the performance of city staff shall only be made to the CAO through the mayor in private correspondence or conversation. So that's not me asking the CAO a question. That's bringing a complaint. Let's say, I don't know, the electrical truck was doing something.
The second sentence there. Members, the second page. Members shall not contact city staff directly to discuss official municipal business, except to the CAO through the mayor. So if I want to discuss official city business, I have to go to the CAO through the mayor.
Oh, okay, sorry, I was reading one below that.
Yes, because that's normal protocol in any event, because first of all, depending on the subject matter regarding city business, all of council should be privy to any of these discussions if it's city business, first and foremost, and that's why this is written in such a way. If it's a comment, when's the spray park opening or something, that's a whole different concept. But when it's city business, which pertains to whatever the subject may be.
Who defines what city business is? I mean, are we now not allowed to come into City Hall and talk to the CAO?
Councillor Butler, you're out of order. I allowed you your time to speak, so now you're out of order. I'm calling the question. All in favor of this policy? All opposed? Councillor Butler and Councillor Tripp are opposed. The policy is carried. The motion is carried. We will now move on to questions from the public and the media. And may I again caution everyone out there that the subject matter should pertain to tonight's agenda. Go ahead. Yes, to the gentleman in front.
Derek Joseph, I'm going to sound like a jackass. What is D? What is it? Area D. Somebody please tell me what Area D is.
It's the regional district that's adjoining to us. It's our rural area of Grand Forks. Rural Grand Forks to the west of us is Area D. And actually not just the west.
Yeah.
We're surrounded.
Yeah, we're surrounded.
Area
C.
Okay.
And Area D is
Partway to
That
Greenwood.
yeah, exactly.
Partway to Christina Lake.
You got it.
Everything outside the
Thank
city
you.
boundaries.
Thank you, Councillor
And
Brown.
I just wanted to say that I give you guys the horns for all the stuff, the electrical upgrades, the noise complaints. Music festivals are huge. They're absolutely huge for all ages, all people. And the fact that you guys would do that for this, whether it's rock and roll. I don't like baseball. I'm not going to this because it's baseball. I'm going to this because I'm now a member of Grand Forks. Baseball nearly took my life when I was 11. I was hit in the head and spent months in the hospital. But even if you don't like rock and roll, it's another event that's happening, and I encourage people that they should also attend CannaFest.
Rock and roll nearly took my life.
Well said, Derek. You said the key word. It's another event that's come to Grand Forks, and we can't have enough of that.
And you're a member of the community.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And I just wanted to say, awesome job for approving those two things. And that's it.
Thank you for your
And the
comments.
area D thing. Thank you.
And you didn't sound like a jackass.
No.
Okay.
We have a policy in place now. All right, Councillor Krog. Oh, sorry. To the, who was first? I missed, my apologies. But the lady will go first, so you'll be a gentleman.
Yes, Your Worship, thank you. Kate Sailors, Grand Forks Gazette. My question is regarding the Code of Conduct policy. Why is that being brought forward this evening? It was tabled for the July 18th meeting.
The reason it was tabled to the July 18th originally was because there was requests from council to have a closer look at it if there's any changes required. So I felt at this point in time the best thing to do was give it to our legal team, and what better way to ascertain that the policy is intact and it covers all the areas of concern. And this is why once I got this back, which I did today, I put it on as a late item because I felt there was no real reason to delay it.
Thank you.
Gentleman now in the second row.
He's moving up.
Okay, Les Johns of GFTV. Nigel's not here today. I'll see if I have enough wind.
You have to do it with English accent.
Hi, the city has $1 million budget, 2,000 light items. I get that you would like to have as much detailed information as you could for every meeting to know where the business of the city is at. And when you can go online and deal with banking systems that give you tons of amazing information, it seems like, well, why can't we do that here? I get that. The thing is that those banks and mortgage firms and stuff like that, they spend inordinate amounts of money to make that easy for you. Maybe in a couple of years there'll be an AI that can go through the system and give you the answers you want when you want them. That's one thing. This thing of code of conduct and interactions with staff, and Councillor Thompson mentioned that the electrical people had come in and, people might think this is stupid, but if you all lived outside the city, you'd never have that problem. And the only real serious thing I have to point out is that previously when council was here before the fire, and then even when they were moved into the temporary facilities, there was a table with a little bit of a podium and specifically a microphone so that people who came to talk before council, delegations, questions, they had a specific place and they had a microphone so everybody could hear them. And maybe you could consider reinstating something like that.
Yeah, good point. We're still working on the microphone, I believe, right?
We're getting carried
Yes,
over
exactly.
in the report for the audio system.
We're doing karaoke.
Yeah. So next time then you could represent yourself almost like a rock star.
I'm sorry, that's it. I just don't have Nigel's staying power, I guess.
Thank you. To the lady in front row.
One further question. Kate again. My question is regarding still a code of conduct policy. So under this policy, does the city have any kind of protections in place for a councillor who did have a legitimate concern? I don't want to say whistleblower, but some sort of policy to protect a councillor should they bring forward a legitimate concern.
Absolutely. This is all covered. This is why it went to the legal team to ascertain that there's no, in other words, all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted here.
To follow up question?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so should a councillor have a legitimate concern, they wouldn't be penalized for, say, bringing it to the media?
Oh, to the media. Oh.
Yeah.
That's, I'll let Councillor Krog weigh in on this one before I comment on that.
My opinion on it, no. It's a little bit different. What this was, I guess, I would see this as, let's say I thought that $1 million was missing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to go to the media and say that there's $1 million missing before I go to us and say, is there $1 million missing?
Mm-hmm.
And they say, no, there's not $1 million missing, right? So that's what it's for. Now, if it's legitimate and there's $1 million missing, then, and nobody's doing anything about it,
Yeah.
that's where the,
Where are the terms of reference of who considers whether it's legitimate or not is another very imperative question. Who makes that decision when we say, as you mentioned, a legitimate complaint? Who ascertains that statement legitimate? So this is where it should be brought in front of all of council first and discuss it. Are you aware that this is happening? And then council, because we are still the boss of our staff. We are the employers.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, it can be addressed through the proper channels and protocol through our CAO, who will look into it. And it goes on from there, and we will get a response.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Gentlemen in the, that's second row.
Yeah. Tom Tripp, Grand Forks. I just wanted to say that with the ball games coming, there's 9 of you, staff and council, and you had real good teamwork tonight. The chemistry was great, and I just appreciate it. I worked in the lab for about 10 years, so I know what chemistry is, and just keep up the good work.
I thought you were going to suggest me.
Thank you.
Team.
So do we have any other questions or concerns? In that case, without further ado, may I have a motion to adjourn? Councillor Hammett, Councillor Thompson, all in favor? This meeting's adjourned.